My dad lifted his glass at my sister's wedding and said loud enough for every chandelier to hear, "Some kids make you proud, others just take up space." The room laughed, small, polite, terrified laughs. My mother kept her smile perfectly still. My brother-in-law clinked his glass like nothing happened, and I sat there, every nerve on fire, realizing I'd just been erased in front of everyone I grew up with. So I smiled back steady and said, "Good thing I just got my own place 2,000 meters away. Don't worry, you'll never have to see me take up space again." The laughter died before the echo did. I stood, left my champagne untouched, and walked out of their perfect picture. That was the night they toasted their control, and I started planning my escape. Before I tell you how I left them speechless for good, tell me, where are you listening from so I know I'm not alone? And when you've heard the rest, tell me what would you have done if your own family tried to shrink you down to nothing? The night after the wedding, sleep refused to come. The hotel room still smelled like champagne and lilies, the same sickly sweet mix that clung to my hair and dress when I walked out of that ballroom. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard my father's voice again, amplified by the microphone, followed by that thin ripple of laughter from people who didn't want to be next. My mother's face stayed frozen in my mind, her smile unmoving, practiced, protective. I had always known there were rules in my family, invisible lines you didn't cross if you wanted peace. I just hadn't realized public humiliation was one of the tools they used to enforce them. When I got back to Indiana, the quiet hit harder than the toast ever did. My parents' house looked unchanged, like it had been preserved under glass. Same gray shutters, same perfectly edged lawn. The kitchen light glowing late into the night like a signal that everything was exactly where it belonged. But inside, the air felt heavier, transactional, as if I owed something just for existing there. Dad sat at the dining table with his laptop open, spreadsheets reflected in his glasses. He didn't bother looking up when I walked in. "You made quite an exit," he said, not angry, not curious, just calculating, like he was reviewing a loss report. Mom poured herself coffee and chimed in gently, "Your father's just worried. You embarrassed yourself, that's all." Embarrassed myself. That's how they reframed it. That's how they always reframed everything. Kelsey texted from her honeymoon later that night, a string of hearts and champagne emojis, like the speech had never happened. Selective memory was one of her strongest skills. When she flunked her first year of college, it was burnout. When I asked for help with tuition, it was irresponsibility. Same pattern, different excuses. For years, I'd convinced myself they just didn't understand me, that one day I'd prove myself with something undeniable, something impressive enough to earn real approval. Sitting alone in my childhood bedroom, surrounded by dusty trophies and years of swallowed resentment, I finally admitted the truth. They understood me perfectly, they just preferred me quiet. Dad once told me, "If you want love, earn it." At 16, I thought it was discipline. At 27, I could finally see the cruelty wrapped inside that sentence. The love I kept trying to earn had already been promised to someone else. The next morning, I drank coffee from the same chipped mug I'd used in high school and watched my parents move through their routines. Dad heading to the garage, pressed shirt immaculate, Mom watering plants I'd once forgotten and killed. Everything looked so normal it made my chest tighten, because I knew how this story went if I stayed. They'd smooth the wedding into a misunderstanding, erase the discomfort, and slide me right back into my role, useful, apologetic, grateful for scraps. This time, I didn't apologize. I opened my laptop at the kitchen table and started a new spreadsheet. I didn't name it after them or the wedding. I called it Oxygen. 2 weeks passed before anyone mentioned the toast. That was how my family handled conflict, by starving it until it suffocated. In the group chat, Mom sent photos of Kelsey and her husband on the Amalfi Coast. "Our bright girl living her dream," she captioned. Hearts and sparkles flooded in. I wasn't tagged, I wasn't mentioned. It was like I'd been edited out for pacing. I played along, liked a photo, typed a polite, "Looks amazing," the way you clap for a magician when you already know the trick. Then I went back to my routine: work in the mornings, job searches in other cities in the afternoons, evenings dedicated to the escape fund. Every guilt-laced text from Mom prompted another sale: books, clothes, an old camera. Each deposit went into the account labeled oxygen, and every transaction felt like a breath I hadn't been allowed to take before. Dad called one night, his voice carefully softened. "Your mother says you've been distant." I almost laughed. "I've been consistent," I said. "You're just noticing now." He paused, then defaulted to the line that used to silence me: "Family's family." It didn't land this time. After we hung up, I opened the folder on my desktop and scrolled through job postings in places far enough to quiet the echo: Portland, Denver, Flagstaff. Distance felt like relief, not abandonment. Lucas called later, checking in the way he always did. "How are you holding up?" I said I was fine. He didn't believe me. "Gianna, fine is what people say when they've stopped hoping." I didn't argue. He was right, just not in the way he thought. Then Naomi texted, polite words coded in curiosity, saying Portland would suit me. I deleted it without replying. No one else was going to narrate my life. When Mom called a few days later, she disguised it as concern. "You sound tired. You should rest." Then she slid the blade in gently. "Don't run away from family because of one bad night." Run away, that's what she called it. Not leaving, not choosing myself, just running. That was the moment something settled. I wasn't angry anymore. I was finished negotiating. I renamed the folder Exit and booked a flight for an interview. The confirmation email hit my inbox like a steady pulse. Everything unraveled faster after that. A week before my interview, Kelsey called. Her voice was thin, stripped of the confidence everyone worshipped. "He's been gone for days," she said. "Says he needs space." I heard the bitter laugh she tried to swallow. "Funny how men use your words against you." I drove over despite myself. Her apartment looked like Heartbreak on pause. Half-empty closets, wine glasses drying in the sink, a wedding photo face down on the counter. She handed me a box and said she couldn't move back there alone. We packed quietly until she whispered, "You were right to leave." I didn't tell her it wasn't about being right, it was about survival. I just nodded. When I got home, the house felt dimmer than usual. Mom sat in the living room, phone lighting one side of her face. "You helped your sister move?" she asked without looking up. I froze. She continued, "Kelsey called, said you were wonderful, said you told her to come home." I hadn't. Her lips curved slightly, not quite a smile. "Well, she's coming anyway. Dinner Sunday. You'll be there." It wasn't an invitation. That night, I caught my reflection in the window, calm but hollow. I opened my laptop, checked the plans folder, and there it was, the email from Portland, subject line, "Interview confirmation." For the first time in months, I felt something close to relief. I printed the offer details, packed my portfolio, and slid both into a leather folder labeled Next Chapter. Then I did something reckless. I opened the shared family bank account, the one Dad insisted on for emergencies. I transferred every cent that was mine into my personal account and hit Close Account. Clean, silent, legal. 2 days later, Mom's tone shifted. Her text came wrapped in sugar. "Dinner at 6, Kelsey's cooking lasagna." That was the tell. Mom never let anyone else cook. I knew then it wasn't a dinner. It was an ambush. I charged my phone, backed up my files to a small USB, and left it in my purse. If they wanted to talk, they could do it without my plans inside their reach. At 6 sharp, I walked into the house. The table was set for 4, candles lit like a peace offering. Dad was scrolling his phone, Kelsey sitting stiff beside him. Mom poured wine and smiled like nothing had ever broken. "Sit," Dad said. I did, but this time I wasn't the one on trial. The second I sat down, I knew. The air had that heavy, artificial calm that always came before one of their talks. Candles flickered between us, the table perfectly staged like a photo shoot for forgiveness no one meant. Dad didn't look up from his phone when he started. "Your cousin Mia says you've been applying out west." His tone was soft, but his words were loaded like bullets wrapped in politeness. I kept my voice level. That's right, I had an interview. Mom set down her wine. We just worried you're running from something, Jana. Kelsey's eyes darted toward me. Warning or apology? I couldn't tell. I smiled, that practiced, dangerous calm I'd learned from them. Maybe I'm running towards something. Dad finally looked at me. His gaze had the weight of a closing door. Don't turn this into another rebellion. You've always been dramatic. Or maybe you've always been cruel, I said quietly. The room went still. Kelsey's fork clinked against her plate. Mom's smile cracked just slightly. You don't mean that. I do. My voice surprised even me. You humiliated me in public, and you all laughed. You raised me on contracts and lectures, then called it love. You say family is forever, but what you really mean is obedience. Dad pushed his chair back, slow and deliberate. Watch your tone. I laughed. It wasn't loud, just sharp enough to slice through the tension. That's all you care about, isn't it, tone? Presentation, control. You don't care if you hurt people as long as it looks civilized. He stood. We gave you everything. No, I said. You sold me everything at interest. For the first time, his face shifted just a flicker, like a crack in old porcelain. Kelsey's voice broke the silence. Dad, please. Stay out of this, he snapped. That was it, the old reflex, the hierarchy reasserting itself. But it didn't land this time. Kelsey went quiet, not from fear, but from understanding. I stood. This isn't a dinner, it's a performance, and I'm not playing anymore. Mom's voice trembled, something rare. You're making a mistake. Maybe, I said, but at least it'll be mine. I turned to Kelsey. Are you staying? Her eyes glistened, but she didn't speak. I nodded once and walked toward the door. Gianna. Dad's voice carried that command he'd perfected over the years, the kind that froze you mid-step. Don't walk away from this family. I looked back at him. You walked away first, you just did it slower. I left without slamming the door. Quiet exits hurt louder. Outside, the night was heavy with summer humidity. I got in my car, gripping the wheel until my knuckles went white. My phone buzzed once. Mom's text. Come home, we can talk like adults. I deleted it. Back at my apartment, the air felt still but breathable. I set my bag down, opened my laptop, and saw the unread email glowing at the top of my inbox. Offer. Creative strategist. Portland. For a moment, I just stared at it, the exact kind of moment my family would call too good to be true. But I clicked it open anyway. Full-time, remote, benefits, salary higher than I'd hoped. The line at the bottom said, "We'd love to have you start next month." It was everything they said I didn't deserve. I printed the offer and slid it into my next chapter folder, next to the closed account confirmation. Each document was proof that I could build something without their permission. Then I heard the faint vibration of my phone again. Unknown number. I hesitated before answering. Jana, Kelsey's voice whispering. They're furious. Mom found your spreadsheet. She told Dad you were planning to humiliate them by leaving. I closed my eyes. How did she find it? She went through your laptop when you were at dinner, said she was checking the battery. Of course she did. It wasn't enough to control the story. They had to own the script. Don't come back, Kelsey said. They're waiting for you. Doors closed. Please don't. My throat tightened. Thank you. We stayed on the line for a moment, both breathing like we were afraid to be heard. Then she whispered, I'm proud of you, and hung up. I sat there motionless. The betrayal burned, but underneath it was something steadier, clarity. I pulled my suitcase from the closet, set it open on the floor, and started packing. Not the panic kind of packing, measured, deliberate. The good jeans, 2 shirts that felt like me, the leather folder, the USB. Everything else could rot here. Before dawn, I slipped out the door. The air was damp and cold enough to sting. The neighborhood was still asleep, every window dark except one, probably someone else awake and waiting for change. At the end of the driveway, I looked back at the house. The porch light flickered once, like a tired heartbeat. I whispered, You wanted me gone, now you get your wish. The taxi arrived on time. The driver didn't ask questions. We rode in silence down the empty highway, city lights fading behind us. When the airport doors opened, the smell of coffee and floor polish hit me at once. I found a seat near the window, opened my phone, and saw another text. Dad this time. Don't make choices you can't undo. I typed back but didn't send it. Some mistakes are the only way out. Then I deleted it entirely. As the sun climbed, a voice announced my flight to Portland. I grabbed my bag, walked to the gate, and for the first time in years felt no need to look over my shoulder. On the plane, as the engines roared to life, I closed my eyes. My father's words echoed again. Some kids make you proud, others just take up space. I smiled, soft and steady. Then watch me take all the space I need. The plane lifted through the clouds, and I swear for a second it felt like oxygen. Portland didn't greet me with fireworks, just soft rain and the smell of cedar through an open cab window. The apartment I'd rented was small, a little cracked at the edges, but it was mine. No rules taped to the fridge, no silent disapproval hanging in the air. The first night, I unpacked slowly, each folded shirt a quiet declaration. I'm here, I'm free. A week later, the agency officially welcomed me aboard. My boss called me steady and sharp, 2 words no one in my family had ever used about me. I started sleeping through the night again. The silence didn't feel like punishment anymore. It felt like peace. Then a voicemail came from Kelsey. Her voice was calm this time, lighter. I got the job in Chicago, she said. Mom cried, but it wasn't sadness, it was losing control. Thank you for showing me it's possible. I replayed it twice. Then I smiled. For the first time, our family cycle didn't end in apology. It ended in distance. Safe, necessary distance. Outside, the rain softened to mist. I opened the window wider and breathed in. This wasn't running away. This was arriving. I sat by the window that night, city lights reflecting off the wet pavement below. My phone buzzed once, another family dinner photo, the same empty chair at the end of the table. I didn't open it. Some stories don't need sequels. I poured myself a glass of water, raised it slightly, and whispered, "Here's to taking up space." The quiet answered back like a friend. If you've ever been told you were too much, too loud, or not enough, remember this. Sometimes peace sounds like your own voice uninterrupted. Tell me, what would you have done? And if you felt that, subscribe so you don't miss the next.